Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. So guys, today we'll be talking about these two succulents that belong to the genus of Graptopetalum. Now the one on my right is called Graptopetalum Mendozae and the one on my left is called as Graptopetalum Mendozae. Now the difference between both is the one on the right, which is Mirinae, is a hybrid of Graptopetalum, whereas Graptopetalum Mendozae is a natural species of Graptopetalum. So in this video I'll be talking more about Mendozae, but again guys, everything remains the same for both these varieties. Even though it's a hybrid, but the care requirements remains the same in terms of watering, sunlight, soil, flowering, dormancy, everything remains the same. So whether you have one of these varieties or both of these varieties, the care requirement remains the same. Now this particular succulent has been in this pot for a really long time and it has become root bound. You can see the amount of roots that have started to come out from the drain hole. So it's time to repot this succulent. Now guys, before that, let me quickly give you some care tips of these succulents. Now when I'm giving you the care tips, it's for both of these succulents. Now guys, you can keep these succulents in morning direct sunlight or indirect bright light. But if you want to get those beautiful colors, then you'll have to definitely expose them to morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours. But do not expose them to afternoon direct sunlight. Now talking about watering, you'll have to water whenever the soil tends to dry completely. The soil remains the same what we use for our other succulents. The soil has to be loose, porous, well draining, and should dry out before you water again. So ensure that you check your soil that it's completely bone dry before you go ahead and water them. Now guys, talking about the pest issues, they usually do not have a lot of pest issues as far as I've noticed. But in case if you have any mealybug attack, then you can use any of the organic solutions that you have been using all this while. Now guys, talking about the other succulent, which is the hybrid, they both tend to look quite similar when it comes to appearance. But yes, there are a lot of difference when you take a closer look. So when you take a closer look at Graptopetalum Mendozae, you'll tend to see that the leaves are comparatively smaller compared to Mendozae, and even the colors also tend to change. Now, as and when Mendozae tends to get mature, the leaves are going to turn much more darker pink in color compared to Mendozae. That is the only difference, and the leaf shape is also going to be a major difference. Mendozae have very smaller leaves compared to Mendozae. So these are the physical differences that you will be able to see apart from the color, whereas everything remains the same soil mix, same sun requirement. And in fact, if you want those bright colors on your Mendozae, to get those colors intense, you'll have to give them morning direct sunlight. So when you compare both of them next to each other, you can definitely see there is a lot of difference when it comes to leaves. Now guys, unfortunately, even this pot was full of the succulent, but unfortunately my dog happened to drop and step on them, and unfortunately most of them got smashed. So I'm trying my best to revive them back. So far they are looking quite good. It is getting revived back. I am seeing a lot of new growth. So I'm hoping that maybe by next year it will grow much more fuller. So this is how my Graptopetalum Mendozae looks when I had initially got it. You can see it was quite green in color because probably due to the transit, it had lost all its color. But after I started acclimating it and putting it out in morning direct sunlight for 5 to 6 hours, it started to change. And now guys, this is how they tend to bloom during the winters. So basically, Graptopetalums tend to go dormant during the summer, and winter is their growing period. So they tend to bloom during the winter period. And in case if you want to add any fertilizers, which is not necessary, but in case if you want to add any kind of nutrients or fertilizers, you can do it during the winter season. And also guys, if you're planning to behead or do any stem cuttings, this is the right time, because very soon we will be experiencing winters, and that's when it's going to be their growing period. So this is the right time to behead or to do any stem cuttings or leaf propagations of Graptopetalums. So now talking about propagation and multiplying, you all know I do not like to repot my succulents, not because I'm lazy, but as you all know, if you are going to do stem cuttings and beheadings, you are going to end up with more succulents. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. And also you can notice Most of these guys already have aerial roots. The reason, because there is not much space in the pot. As you've seen, the roots were coming out from the drain hole, which means that they are running out of space. That is the reason why most of these guys have started putting out aerial roots. So I will start cutting them off. I'm going to behead majority of them. Again, I'm going to check and look at the size. If the size is very small, I'm not going to do a stem cutting or a beheading. I'm going to leave them as it is in the pot. But the ones that have aerial roots, or the ones that are of a good size, I will separate them and keep them aside. Again guys, we are doing stem cuttings, we are cutting the succulents, we are letting open wounds on them, so you have to ensure that they are kept away from any kind of moisture and water, and we have to wait for them to callus. Not only the stem cuttings, but also the cuttings that have been left behind in the pot also needs to callus. So guys, I'm pretty much done with all these stem cuttings. As I said, I'm not going to cut all of them. As you can see, the remaining ones are quite small, so I do not want to disturb them. I do not want to cut them because they might not be able to root. So I've only cut the ones that had aerial roots, or the ones that were slightly larger in size and which can go through the callus process and root efficiently. So the rest of them, I'm just going to leave them in the pot. Now I'm going to follow the same drill. I'm going to keep them in a place wherein it's away from moisture, wherein they're away from water, but there is good amount of indirect bright light and there is good air circulation. So that is a type of location where I tend to keep all of my bee-headed succulents or stem cuttings, or even for that matter, if I have plucked out any leaves for propagation, I keep them in that kind of a location. Now guys, I'm almost done with my cuttings. I'm going to keep them in that space wherein they would be away from water and moisture. And now talking about Graptopetalum Mendozae, I'm not going to be doing any kind of cutting on that because it's still very small. It's still very fragile. I'm just waiting for it to grow much more, because it was doing so quite well, but unfortunately he put his leg on it and most of those leaves were smashed, because these are very tiny. They tend to look quite large in camera right now, but in reality they are quite smaller compared to Graptopetalum Mendozae. Even Mendozae is also very small. Even the mature plant also tends to have very small rosettes, not like other Echuarias or other Graptoverias or Graptopetalums. These are quite small when it comes to a mature growth. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep propagating.